Hey guys, thanks for tuning into our Tundra video series. In this episode, I'm going to show you how to replace the amber parking and turn signal lights inside the headlight with amber LEDs. We're going to go step by step how to remove the headlight from the vehicle, how to replace the bulbs with LED, and how to add the anti-hyper flash resistors so everything works properly. Let's go. For the front side markers in the headlight, we're going to use the 1 watt ceramic style 194 bulbs from GTR Lighting. To do the front parking lights and turn signal bulb, we're going to use these special CK style 3157 LED bulbs plus 50 watt load equalizing resistors from GTR Lighting. The tools we're going to need to do this are a flathead screwdriver, a 10mm socket and a ratchet, a wire stripper, soldering iron with solder, an electrical tape, and last, a drill with a Phillips bit on it. First thing is to, of course, get the hood out of the way. And the way the headlights come out is, if you see here, there's 2 plastic clips that hold this trim panel in place. There's 2 bolts on top and more on the bottom. So first step is going to be to remove this plastic trim panel from underneath the headlight. So to get the plastic clips off, I would recommend using a flat screwdriver and just pry them out. They look like this. Now with those removed, the panel is loose, but you can see it's still being held in place. And the way this works is there's 2 plastic pins that go into the fender like this. So I'm just going to keep using my flathead screwdriver, but be very, very careful not to scratch this edge. If you're worried at all that you might scratch it, I'd recommend putting some protective paint down here. But there's one on the top. And one on the bottom. Be very careful, go slow. It's okay, just don't scratch anything. Once you get them loose, they should slide right out. And you can kind of see how this works. These pins go in these holes. Now that this trim panel is gone, this lower 10mm bolt is exposed. So I'm going to remove the one on the bottom and the 2 on the top. Once those are removed, the last thing holding it in place, besides the pressure of everything sitting here, is this has a little lip that it kind of falls onto. So you're going to want to pry this part up a little bit. Make sure that these hooks on top release, and the whole thing should just come straight out. Now I'm actually going to remove the entire headlight. It's just going to make the job a lot easier. One thing to be careful of is when you're doing this, make sure the bottom of the headlight doesn't touch the paint. It will scratch. So I've got my hand down there. First, we're going to pull out our amber turn signal parking light. Set it aside. Our amber side marker light, the high beam, and the low beam. And one last plug for the motorized adjustment. For the side marker light, we'll do that one first. What I've decided to use are the GTR Lighting ceramic 1 watt 194 bulbs. The reason for using these is because they're very, very durable. I don't really like using any 194 bulbs in external housings that have open circuit boards because they just don't tend to last very long. These ceramic 194s are very tough, to say the least, and they're waterproof. So we're just going to take one of these out and replace it with the original 194. That's all there is to it. Next, we're going to use the CK style 3157 LED bulb from GTR Lighting. This LED uses 24 individual 50/50 SMD LED chips. And just check out the link in the description for the video, and you'll get a link right to this along with the resistors we're going to show you next. You can't just use any old 3157 bulb. It's the CK style. This is very, very important. If you put a regular non-CK style 3157 bulb in your socket, you're probably going to blow a fuse. The reason that you need to use the CK style bulbs is that the Tundra uses a very specific type of wiring. It's not going to work with just any old LED bulb. So we got the CK style bulbs. I'm going to put it in, see if it turns on. Got it in backwards, just flip it around. There we go. Now if this was a standard bulb, it might smoke the bulb, it might pop a fuse, who knows. So that's done, but I want to show you something. Just by doing the bulbs, now we're going to have an issue called hyperflash, where the vehicle's computer thinks there's a bulb out because we're using a low wattage LED instead of a standard incandescent bulb. So you can see when I try to turn the blinkers on, we get this fast flash issue. And the way to fix that is by installing a load equalizing resistor. To fix the hyperflash issue, what we have to do is install a resistor like this. What it's going to do is mimic the properties of the original bulb and trick the truck's computer into thinking that the factory bulb is both still installed and working correctly. The way we're going to do this is wire it in parallel between the white wire, which is the ground, and the pink wire, which is our positive flashing wire. This may be different from year to year on different Tundras, so make sure that either you hire a professional installer to figure out how to do this, or measure the wires yourself to make sure that you know which one's ground, which one's positive parking light, and which one's positive blinker. We're going to want to install this between the ground and the positive blinker wire. First, expose some wiring, so get the loom pulled back and out of the way. I'm going to use my wire strippers to expose the bare wire on the white ground wire and the pink positive wire. Next, take one end of the load equalizing resistor and wrap it around the bare wire of your ground, and take the other end of the load equalizing resistor and wrap it around the pink positive wire. Now this is being wired in parallel, and it doesn't matter which side of the resistor goes to positive and which side goes to negative. So that's the circuit. Now I'm going to solder these connections, mount the resistor, and the hyperflash issue should be fixed. Now that we got our wires connected for the resistors, it's time to solder them on. Now this kit comes with Scotch locks, and you can use those if you want, but I prefer to never use them. Anytime I get a product with Scotch locks or T-taps, I usually just throw them in the garbage and solder the connections, and I'd advise you to do the same. Now that we have bare soldered connections, it's time to tape them up so that they're safe. Make sure you get enough tape to both cover the connection and make sure that if it rubs against something, it won't wear through. The last step with our resistor is to mount it to some kind of metal. You wouldn't think it by looking at this, but this golden resistor gets to be almost 220 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you put it on anything fibrous or plastic, it's going to cause a problem. What I'm going to do is actually mount it to this piece of sheet metal down below the headlight. There's nothing that can be damaged on the other side. It's just sheet metal. So we're going to do that next. So I got this little self-tapping screw, and I'm going to just go through one of these mounting tabs. And then attach it to the sheet metal as low as I can get it. And now we're ready to reassemble all the wiring. The last step is to do a final fit test, make sure all your wiring is safe and not being pinched, and turn the lights on and see how they look. So this is one of the only LED bulbs that will work as a plug-and-play option for this housing. There's other ones out there, but these work really well on the Tundra. And something that I like about this particular setup is the color difference from stock. It's a little bit of a lighter color as opposed to the dark orange color that it comes with from the factory. And because of all the different LED chips that illuminate on the bulb, you can kind of see that pattern inside the reflector. There's many, many dots in there, and it's kind of a cool look. You can see that it's blinking. You can tell the difference between low and high, and it's just kind of a neat effect. It doesn't glow like the factory bulb does. It's going to be an instant on, instant off type of an activation. Also, our side parking light here looks pretty good. Doesn't really look much different than stock, but it should be brighter and it's never going to burn out on you, so that's an advantage. One of my biggest pet peeves with really nice big headlights like this is when there's no amber lenses, but the bulb is amber. So when it's off, you can still see the glow of the amber glass inside the housing, and I think it kind of looks bad. So something that I like to see happen is when you install the LEDs, you don't see anything. It's totally white. It's like there's nothing there until it turns on. Also, the GTR lighting LED bulbs have a black plastic base, so when you put them in, it all but disappears. Now that everything's installed, we just have our 3 bolts to reinstall to hold the headlight in place, put our trim piece on the front, and repeat these same steps for the other side, and you're done. So here we have a comparison of the aftermarket LED bulbs from GTR Lighting on the left, on the passenger side, and we have the stock bulbs still installed on the right, on the driver's side. This is just regular parking lights, and this is what it looks like when they're blinking. It'll be an instant on, instant off type of an activation. And they should last longer than your incandescent factory bulbs. So there you have it, LED turn signal bulbs for the front of your Toyota Tundra. You don't need to do any guesswork, we've already got it figured out. Click the link in the description and it'll bring you right to the kit that you need to do the LED lights in your headlights. If you like what you saw and you want to see what else we're working on, click the subscribe button so that you get our next video. I'll catch you next time.